The day Emma pulled a dying boy from the river, she had exactly 3 I-47 in her pocket and no idea she'd just saved the richest family in America. But here's what nobody tells you about saving someone's life. Sometimes the person you save ends up saving you right back. And sometimes the truth behind that moment changes everything you thought you knew about kindness, money, and what really matters. Stay with me, because what happens next is going to break your heart, and then put it back together in a way you never expected. Do well to subscribe to this channel. Emma Torres wiped down the greasy counter at Joe's Diner for the third time that hour. Her fingers were red and cracked from the cheap soap. She was 19 years old, worked 2 jobs, and still couldn't afford to fix the hole in her left shoe. Outside the diner window, fancy cars rolled past, people in clean clothes, people who didn't count pennies before buying bread. Emma didn't hate them. She just wondered what it felt like to not be tired all the time. "Emma, table 5 needs water," Joe shouted from the kitchen. She grabbed the pitcher and moved. Always moving. If she stopped, she'd think about her mom's hospital bills. If she stopped, she'd remember that the electricity might get cut off next week. So she didn't stop. Her shift ended at midnight. Emma pulled on her thin jacket and started the long walk home. She couldn't afford the bus anymore. 40 minutes on foot through the park, past the river, then up the hill to the tiny apartment she shared with her sick mother. The November air bit at her cheeks. She walked faster. That's when she heard it, a splash, then a scream, high and terrified, cutting through the night like a knife. Emma's heart jumped. She ran toward the sound, her worn shoes slapping against the wet pavement. The park was dark, empty. Most people knew better than to be here after sunset. But someone was in the water. She reached the riverbank and saw him, a boy, maybe 17, thrashing in the black water. A wheelchair sat empty on the path, tipped over like someone had been pushed. "Help!" His voice was weak, desperate. I can't swim." Emma didn't think. Thinking was for people who had time. She kicked off her shoes and jumped. The cold water punched the air from her lungs. Everything went black and freezing and silent. She forced her arms to move, pulled herself toward the boy. Her fingers found his jacket. She grabbed tight and kicked hard toward the shore. The current fought her. Her muscles screamed. The boy was heavy, dead weight in her arms. Just a little more. Just keep going. Her knee hit something, a rock. Pain shot up her leg, but she used it, pushed off hard, dragged them both onto the muddy bank. They collapsed. Emma coughed up river water, her whole body shaking. The boy lay beside her, gasping, alive. "Are you okay?" Emma choked out. He turned his head. Even in the darkness, she could see his face, young, scared, and something else, sad, deeply, impossibly sad. "My legs," he whispered. "They don't work. Someone pushed me in." Emma's blood went cold. "Who? Who pushed you?" But before he could answer, bright headlights flooded the park. A black car screeched to a stop. Doors flew open and people rushed out. Men in suits, a woman in an expensive coat, all of them yelling and running toward them. "Daniel!" the woman screamed. She fell to her knees beside the boy, touching his face, his shoulders, checking him like he might disappear. "Oh my God, Daniel, are you hurt?" "I'm okay, Mom," the boy, Daniel, said quietly. "She saved me." The woman turned to Emma. Her eyes were red, her makeup running. You pulled him out?" Emma nodded, still shivering. He couldn't swim. I heard him screaming. One of the men in suits stepped forward. He was older, with silver hair and a face that looked used to giving orders. Miss, what's your name? Emma. Emma Torres. Emma, he said slowly, like he was memorizing it. Do you have any idea who this boy is? Emma looked at Daniel, soaking wet, crying quietly. His legs bent at odd angles like broken tree branches. She saw a scared kid, nothing else. No, sir, I couldn't let him drown. The man stared at her for a long moment. Then he did something strange. He smiled, but it wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who'd just seen something they thought didn't exist anymore. James, the woman said to the man, we need to get Daniel to the hospital, now. Of course. James turned back to Emma. Come with us, please. I need to get home. My mom's waiting. We'll take you home, James said, after we make sure Daniel's all right, and after we thank you properly. Emma wanted to say no, wanted to run. Something about these people, the expensive clothes, the way they moved like the world bent around them, made her nervous. But Daniel looked at her with those sad eyes and said, Please, I want to make sure you're okay too. So Emma got in the car. The house that money built. The hospital was private, the kind Emma had only seen in movies. Doctors appeared instantly. A whole team surrounded Daniel, checking him, moving him to a warm room with soft lights and machines that beeped quietly. Emma sat in the hallway, still wet, still cold, her hands shaking around a cup of coffee someone had given her. The woman, Daniel's mother, sat down beside her. Up close, Emma could see her jewelry. Each piece probably cost more than Emma's entire life. Thank you, the woman said softly. I'm Linda Chin, Daniel's mother. Chin. Emma's stomach dropped. She knew that name. Everyone knew that name. The Chen family owned half the city. Buildings, businesses, the biggest tech company in the country. You're one of the Chens? Like the Chens? Linda nodded. My husband, Richard Chen, built Chen Industries, and Daniel is our only child. Emma felt dizzy. She'd saved a billionaire's son. She'd jumped into a freezing river for a kid whose family could buy the river. Why was he alone in the park? Emma asked. In a wheelchair, at night? Linda's face crumpled. He wasn't supposed to be. He snuck out. Daniel has a hard time. The accident that took his legs, it took something else too. His happiness, his hope. She wiped her eyes. He tries to hide it, but I know. He doesn't want to live anymore. The words hung in the air like poison. Someone pushed him, Emma said quietly. He told me. Linda's head snapped up. What? Before you arrived, he said someone pushed him into the water. Linda stood fast, nearly spilling her coffee. James, she called down the hall. James, get in here now. The silver-haired man appeared immediately. Linda told him what Emma said. James's face went hard as stone. We'll investigate, he said, quietly. If someone's trying to hurt Daniel, find them, Linda said. Her voice was pure ice. And make them regret ever being born. Emma shivered again, but this time not from the cold. James turned to her. Emma, would you be willing to tell us exactly what happened, every detail? She nodded and told them everything. The splash, the scream, the empty wheelchair, Daniel's words about being pushed. When she finished, James and Linda exchanged a look that Emma couldn't read. Emma, Linda said carefully, how would you like to help Daniel? Help him? I don't understand. He needs someone, Linda said. Someone real. Someone who sees him as a person, not a bank account. You saved his life tonight. I think you might be able to save it in other ways, too. I'm not a doctor, Emma said. I'm just a waitress. Exactly, Linda said. You're just a person, a good person. Daniel needs that more than he needs another doctor. Emma should have said no, should have walked away from these people with their money and their problems and their dangerous secrets. But she thought of Daniel's sad eyes, the way he'd thanked her, even though he was the one who'd almost died. What do you want me to do? Emma asked. The offer, 3 days later, Emma stood outside the biggest house she'd ever seen. It wasn't a house, really. It was a mansion. No, bigger than that. It was a castle made of glass and stone and money. James had called her that morning with an offer that made no sense. The family would like to hire you as Daniel's companion, $20 an hour, 40 hours a week. You'd spend time with him, help him with daily tasks, keep him company. Mrs. Chen believes you have a calming effect on him. $800 a week. Emma had almost dropped the phone. That money would pay for her mom's medicine, would fix the electricity, would buy food that wasn't expired, would let her sleep at night without wondering if they'd end up on the street. But something felt off. Rich people didn't just hand money to strangers. There had to be a catch. Why me? Emma had asked. You could hire a professional caregiver. We have, James said. Daniel hates them all. He barely speaks to them. But at the hospital after you left, he asked about you 3 times. Asked if you were okay, if you got home safe. Mrs. Chen thinks you might be able to reach him in ways others can't. Now Emma stood at the door, her hand raised to knock, wondering if she was making a huge mistake. The door opened before she touched it. James stood there in a perfect suit, his face neutral. Miss Torres, please come in. The inside of the house was even more overwhelming. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, art on the walls that probably cost more than Emma's apartment building. James led her through hallways that seemed to go on forever. Finally, they stopped at a door. Daniel's room, James said. A few things you should know first. Don't mention his legs unless he brings them up. Don't pity him. He hates that. And don't lie to him. He can tell. Emma nodded, her mouth dry. One more thing, James said, his voice dropping. We still don't know who pushed him that night. Until we do, be careful. Trust no one in this house except the immediate family. Understood? Emma's skin went cold. You think someone in the house tried to kill him? I think someone wants him dead, James said flatly. And they might try again. If you see anything strange, anything at all, you tell me immediately. He opened the door. Daniel sat by the window in his wheelchair, staring out at the gardens. He didn't turn when they entered. Daniel, James said gently, Emma's here. Slowly, Daniel turned his head. When he saw her, something changed in his face. Not quite a smile, but close. You came, he said quietly. I came, Emma said. James left them alone. Emma walked closer, her footsteps soft on the thick carpet. She sat down in the chair across from Daniel. How are you feeling? She asked. Alive, he said. Thanks to you. I just did what anyone would do. No. Daniel's voice was firm. Most people would have walked away. Called 911 maybe, but not jumped in, not risked their life for a stranger. He looked at her. Why did you do it? Emma thought about it. Because you were screaming, because you needed help, because I know what it's like to feel like you're drowning, and I couldn't just walk away from that. Daniel stared at her for a long moment. They told you about the accident? About my legs? A little. Car crash, Daniel said flatly. 2 years ago. Drunk driver ran a red light, hit us head on. My dad walked away with a broken arm. My mom had a concussion. Me? He gestured at his legs. Spinal cord injury. Doctor said I'd never walk again. I'm sorry, Emma said. Everyone's sorry, Daniel said, his voice bitter. Sorry doesn't make my legs work. Sorry doesn't give me my life back. Emma didn't respond right away. She thought about her own life, the exhaustion, the fear, the endless struggle. Different from Daniel's problems, but painful in its own way. You're right, she finally said. Sorry is just a word. It doesn't fix anything. Daniel blinked, surprised. Most people argue with me. Tell me I'm lucky to be alive. Tell me to be grateful. Are you grateful? Emma asked. No, Daniel said. I'm angry. I'm sad. I'm tired of people treating me like I'm made of glass. I'm tired of being stuck in this chair. I'm tired of everything. Emma leaned forward. That night in the park, did you really fall in or? Daniel's face went dark. I didn't fall. So someone pushed you? Yes. Who? Daniel looked away. I don't know. I was sitting by the river thinking. I heard footsteps behind me and then hands on my back. Next thing I knew, I was in the water. Did you see them? Hear their voice? No. It was dark, fast. They were gone before I could turn around. Emma's heart pounded. Why would someone want to hurt you? Daniel laughed, but it was a hollow sound. Because I'm worth $3 billion, Emma's mouth fell open. What? My trust fund. When I turn 21, I inherit $3 billion. Right now, I'm 17. 3.5 more years until I get the money. He met her eyes. Unless I die before then. If I die, the money goes back to the company. And there are a lot of people in this house who would benefit from that. The room suddenly felt cold. You think someone in your family wants you dead? Emma whispered. I think someone wants my money, Daniel said, and I'm in the way. Emma spent the rest of that afternoon with Daniel. They didn't talk about money or death or who might want him gone. Instead, they talked about small things. Books. Daniel loved fantasy novels, stories about people going on adventures to save the world. Music. Emma admitted she'd never been to a concert. Daniel looked shocked. Food. They both agreed that breakfast was the best meal of the day. Simple things. Human things. Emma noticed how Daniel's shoulders relaxed as they talked, how his voice got less bitter, more normal. Like maybe, for a moment, he forgot about the wheelchair and the accident and the attempts on his life. At 6 o'clock, Linda knocked softly and entered with a warm smile. How are we doing? She asked. Good, Daniel said, and he sounded like he meant it. Linda's eyes got shiny. Emma, would you like to stay for dinner? Emma thought of her mom waiting at home, the leftover soup they'd planned to split. But Linda was looking at her with such hope, and Daniel was actually smiling, something Linda probably hadn't seen in months. Sure, Emma said. I'd like that. Dinner was awkward. The dining room was huge, the table long enough to seat 20 people. Just 4 of them sat there. Daniel, Linda, Emma, and a man who introduced himself as Richard Chin, Daniel's father. Richard was tall and serious, with gray at his temples and eyes that seemed to calculate everything. He studied Emma like she was a business deal he wasn't sure about. "So," Richard said, cutting his steak with precise movements, "Emma Torres. James says you work at Joe's Diner and take care of your mother, no college degree, no special training, yet my wife wants to pay you $800 a week to spend time with our son." "Richard," Linda said sharply. "I'm just trying to understand," Richard continued. "What exactly makes you qualified for this position?" Emma set down her fork. "Nothing," she said honestly. "I'm not qualified. I don't know anything about caregiving or therapy or whatever you think Daniel needs. I'm just someone who jumped in a river because someone needed help." Richard's eyebrow raised. "That's it? That's your qualification?" "Dad," Daniel said quietly, "stop." "I'm protecting you," Richard said. "We don't know this girl. She could be—" "She saved my life," Daniel said, louder now. "She jumped into freezing water in the dark to pull me out. She didn't know who I was, didn't know about the money. She just helped." His voice cracked. "When was the last time someone in this family did something without thinking about the money first?" The table went silent. Richard's jaw tightened. He looked at Emma, then at Daniel, then back at Emma. "Fine," he said. "But if anything happens, anything, you're gone. Understood?" Emma nodded. "Understood." After dinner, Emma said goodbye and headed for the door. James appeared to drive her home. "Wait!" Daniel called from behind her. Emma turned. He wheeled closer, his face serious. "Thank you, for today, for treating me like a person and not a project." "You are a person," Emma said simply. "Will you come back tomorrow?" Emma smiled. "Yeah, I'll come back." As James drove her through the dark streets toward her tiny apartment, Emma looked out the window at the city lights and thought about rich boys in wheelchairs, attempted murder, and $3 billion worth of reasons someone might want Daniel dead. She'd jumped into a river 3 days ago and saved a life. Now she wondered if she'd jumped into something much deeper and far more dangerous than any river could ever be. Emma came back the next day, and the day after that, and the day after that. Slowly, carefully, she and Daniel built something that looked like friendship. They played chess. Daniel won every time, but Emma was learning. They watched movies, argued about the endings, and laughed when they both guessed wrong. Emma pushed Daniel's wheelchair through the massive gardens, past fountains and rose bushes that probably cost more to maintain than most people's houses. "You know what I miss most?" Daniel said one afternoon. They sat by a pond watching goldfish swim lazy circles. "What?" "Running. Just running. Feeling my legs pump, my lungs burn, the wind on my face. Freedom." His voice went quiet. "I used to run track. I was fast, really fast. Coaches said I could go professional if I wanted." Emma didn't know what to say. What could she say? That it would be okay? That he'd walk again? Empty words that meant nothing. So instead she said, "Tell me about it. The running. What did it feel like?" Daniel's eyes lit up, and for the next hour, he talked, really talked, about races he'd won, the feeling of crossing finish lines, the way his body used to move like a machine built for speed. Emma listened, really listened, and she realized something important. Daniel didn't need someone to fix him. He needed someone to remember him, the person he was before the wheelchair, the boy who could run. But good moments never lasted long in that house. The uncle 2 weeks into Emma's new job, she met Marcus Chin, Richard's younger brother and Daniel's uncle. Marcus was handsome in the way rich men often are, expensive haircut, perfect teeth, clothes that cost more than cars. But his smile didn't reach his eyes. He cornered Emma in the hallway one morning, his cologne too strong, his presence too close. "So you're the girl," he said, looking her up and down like she was something for sale. "The hero who saved my nephew." "I just helped," Emma said, trying to step around him. Marcus blocked her path. "How much are they paying you?" "That's private." "Everything's private in this family," Marcus said with a cold laugh. "But money talks eventually. Everyone has a price, Emma. What's yours?" "Excuse me?" "I'm just saying, if you ever need more money, come talk to me. I can be very generous to people who help me with certain problems." Emma's skin crawled. "What problems?" Marcus leaned in close, his breath hot on her ear. "Let's just say there are people in this family who would be better off without Daniel taking up space. People who could make your life very comfortable if you were smart enough to understand how the world really works." Emma's blood went ice cold. She shoved past him, nearly running down the hallway. Behind her, Marcus laughed. "Think about it, hero girl. Think real hard." Emma found Daniel in his room, reading. When he saw her face, he immediately set down his book. What happened? She told him everything. Marcus's words, his implications, the veiled threat. Daniel's face went pale, then red. "That bastard!" "Daniel, he's done this before," Daniel said, his hands clenching into fists. "Tried to pay off my physical therapist to accidentally hurt me during treatment. Offered one of the maids money to put something in my food. Dad fired them both, but Marcus keeps trying." "Why?" Emma asked. "Why does he want you dead?" "Because if I die before 21, my trust fund doesn't just disappear. It gets split among the family. Marcus would get $500 million. That's a lot of motivation to get rid of me." Emma sat down hard. "We need to tell someone. The police, FBI, someone." "And say what? That my uncle offered you money? He's too smart to say anything concrete. It's always hints, suggestions, nothing we can prove." "Then what do we do?" Daniel looked at her, and she saw real fear in his eyes. "We stay alive, both of us, because if Marcus thinks you won't help him, you might become a problem too." That night, Emma barely slept. She lay in her tiny bedroom, staring at the ceiling, thinking about rich men who killed for money and boys in wheelchairs who just wanted to live. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. $50,000 cash. Just be somewhere else when it happens. Think about your mother's medical bills. Think smart. Emma's hand shook as she deleted the message. Then she called James and told him everything. The investigation. James took the threat seriously, very seriously. Within hours, the house was full of private security. Cameras went up in every hallway. Daniel's food was tested before he ate it. Emma got a bodyguard, a serious woman named Sarah, who followed her everywhere. Marcus disappeared. James said he'd gone on a business trip, but Emma knew better. They'd scared him off, for now, but fear only works for so long. Daniel started having nightmares. Emma would hear him screaming in the night, drowning dreams, falling dreams, dreams where hands pushed him into darkness and he couldn't fight back. She started staying later, sometimes until midnight, sitting in a chair beside Daniel's bed until he fell back asleep. "You don't have to do this," Daniel said one night, after a particularly bad dream. You could quit. Get away from my messed up family. I could, Emma agreed, but I'm not going to. Why not? Emma thought about it, about the boy in the river who'd thanked her even while drowning, about the person underneath the wheelchair who just wanted to be seen. Because you're my friend, she said simply, and friends don't run when things get hard. Daniel's eyes got wet. I don't have many friends. You have one, Emma said, and I'm pretty stubborn. Daniel laughed, a real laugh, the kind that shook his shoulders and made him sound 17 again. Yeah, he said, you are. The birthday winter turned to spring. Emma had been working for the Chen family for 4 months. In that time, Daniel changed. He smiled more, laughed, started talking about future plans instead of just surviving today. He began physical therapy again, not to walk, but to stay strong. He joined an online book club, started writing a blog about disability rights. You gave me something, he told Emma one day. Hope? I didn't think I'd ever feel hope again. Emma's chest tightened. You did the hard part. I just showed up. Sometimes showing up is everything. Then came Daniel's 18th birthday. The family threw a massive party, hundreds of people, music, food that looked like art. Emma felt out of place in her cheap dress, surrounded by people wearing jewelry worth more than her life. But Daniel insisted she stay by his side. You're the only real person here, he whispered. Everyone else just wants something. At midnight, Richard Chen stood up and called for attention. The crowd quieted. 18 years ago, Richard said, my son was born, and I thought I knew what success looked like. Money, power, building an empire. His voice cracked. Then I almost lost him, and I realized success means nothing if the people you love aren't alive to share it. He walked over to Daniel, knelt down beside the wheelchair, and took his son's hands. I'm sorry, Richard said, and he was crying. Emma had never seen a billionaire cry. I'm sorry I let you feel like money mattered more than you. I'm sorry I wasn't there when you needed me. I'm sorry I almost let you drown, not in a river, but in my ambition. Daniel was crying too now. Dad, I love you, Richard said, more than any amount of money, more than any company. You're my son, and I'm going to do better. They hugged, father and son, and the whole room was silent except for the sound of two people finally finding each other again. Emma wiped her own eyes. Beside her, Linda squeezed her hand. Thank you, Linda whispered, for bringing my family back together. Emma didn't know what to say. She'd just jumped in a river. Everything else was them. But maybe that's all anyone needed sometimes. Someone to jump in, someone to show up. The party wound down. People left. Emma was gathering her things when Daniel called her over. I have something for you, he said. Daniel, you don't have to. I want to. He handed her an envelope. Inside was a check. Emma's eyes went wide. $50,000. Daniel, I can't. You can, he said firmly. You saved my life. That's worth a lot more than this. But I know your mom needs surgery. I know you've been working yourself to death trying to pay for it, so let me help. Please. Emma's vision blurred with tears. This is too much. It's not enough, Daniel said, but it's a start. Emma hugged him, held on tight. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you so much. Thank you, Daniel said back, for jumping in, for staying. for being my friend when I needed one most. When Emma got home that night, she sat on her mom's bed and cried, big gulping sobs that shook her whole body. "What's wrong?" her mom asked, alarmed. "Nothing," Emma said through the tears. "Everything's right. For the first time in so long, everything's finally right." 3 years later, Emma stood in the crowd, her heart pounding with pride and joy. Daniel wheeled himself across the stage at his college graduation, business degree, top of his class. He'd done it. But more importantly, he'd done it happy, alive, surrounded by people who loved him. Marcus Chen was in prison. James's investigation had finally found proof of his schemes. Attempted murder, fraud, conspiracy. He'd spend the next 20 years behind bars. Richard and Linda were different now, softer. They volunteered at children's hospitals, started a foundation for spinal injury research, spent actual time with their son. And Emma? She'd finished her own degree, nursing, used Daniel's gift to pay for her mom's surgery, successful, and her own education. She worked at a hospital now, helping people, saving lives in a different way. But she and Daniel still met every week. Coffee, chess, conversation. "Remember when you pulled me out of that river?" Daniel said one afternoon, grinning. "Kinda hard to forget," Emma laughed. "I was so angry that day, so done with everything, I wanted to end it all." He looked at her. "And then you jumped in, this random girl with nothing, risking everything for a stranger, and I thought, if someone I don't even know cares that much, maybe life is worth living after all." Emma's throat tightened. "You saved me too, you know. That night changed my whole life." "We saved each other," Daniel said softly. "That's what matters." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the world go by. Emma thought about that freezing night, the dark water, the scared boy she'd pulled to shore. She'd had $3.47 in her pocket and no idea that one choice would change everything. But that's the thing about jumping in. You never know what you'll find when you reach the bottom. Sometimes it's nothing. Sometimes it's everything. Sometimes it's a friend. 5 years after the river, Emma received a text. "Daniel, guess what?" Emma, "What?" Daniel, "I took a step today." Emma's phone fell from her hands. She called him immediately. "What? How?" "New surgery, experimental. They said there was a 2% chance it would work." Daniel's voice was shaking with joy, with disbelief. "I took one step, Emma, just one. But I felt my leg move. I felt it." Emma was crying. "Daniel, that's incredible. The doctors say I might walk again, really walk. It could take years of therapy, but it's possible." Emma thought about hope. How it was the thing that kept you going when everything else said stop. How one person's kindness could spark it. How it could grow into something miraculous. "I'm so proud of you," she said. "I couldn't have done it without you," Daniel said. "Without that night. Without you showing me that good people still exist. That life is worth fighting for." "You did the fighting," Emma said. "But you taught me how." Later that night, Emma stood by her window looking out at the city. She thought about a scared girl with 347, a drowning boy, and all the moments in between that led them here. Sometimes we save people. Sometimes they save us. And sometimes, if we're really lucky, we save each other. That's the thing about jumping in. You never know what you'll find. But it's always worth the leap.